Hello and welcome to the final round. I'm your host Stephan Bonnar, joined as always by the #1 MMA odds maker in the world, Mr. Matthew Holt. And we got a big UFC fight night. 124 coming up. Seems like we were just on 100 yesterday. Boy, how time flies. Doo Ho Choi against Jeremy Stephens in the main event. This will be Choi's first 5-round fight. Before that, before he got challenged in his last fight, he had 3 quick first-round victories in the UFC, and Cub Swanson kind of weathered the storm, was able to challenge him. He faded at the end of that fight and lost the decision, and now he has a 5-rounder with Jeremy Stephens. Stephens, a plus 140 underdog, and not a bad bet.
Yeah, look, Happy New Year to all the viewers out there. First UFC card 2018. What that means, new year for me. Time to reset the bankroll. 2018, we're going to start it all over again. Look, we're going to make it fun and simple. We're going to start with 500 bucks, see how far we can climb the mountain with our $500 starting fee. Because look, if you get, everyone could start with 500, so everyone can kind of come along. I'm with you on this one, and look, right out of the gate, I'm taking a piece of that 500 and I'm putting it on Jeremy Stephens, and there's a lot of intangibles. And the first one has to be, I think they rushed Doo Ho Choi along too fast with Cub Swanson in the first place. Sam Cecilia, Juan Manuel Puig, these guys aren't top, they're not ranked at all, never mind a top 5 featherweight like Cub Swanson was. I do think that Jeremy Stephens is a step back in class from Cub Swanson, so at least at this time they're not putting him back in with a top 3 or 4 guy. You know, he's not fighting Brian Ortega or Jose Aldo or something here.
And Cub has a win over Jeremy Stephens as well, and a 5-rounder.
Yes. But the thing that I do like about Stephens here, and let's make no misconceptions, everybody thinks that both of these guys are sluggers and they're both going to bang, but that's not really the case. Look, most of Jeremy Stephens' wins lately actually come by decision, including his last win. He's not knocking people out as much.
And his losses. He's really durable. He doesn't get knocked out or submitted.
And my guess is he keeps a pretty good pace. He has trouble with wrestlers. They pretend to grind him down. And he's even had trouble with strikers, but he's always in the fight. We saw the Dennis Bermudez fight where he was getting destroyed by Bermudez, came back and knocked Bermudez out with that knee. I like the fact that he can keep that pace. His cardio is unquestioned, Stephens. I think it took him a fight or two to really get accustomed to fighting at 45, a guy that fought at 55. I thought his first fight at 45, he looked a little drained, and it took him a fight or two to get used to making the weight. And he looked sharp there. I have no doubts about his cardio. On the other side, I do have doubts about Doo Ho Choi's cardio. And I think if Jeremy Stephens, who's proven to be durable against some of the best guys in the world, Gilbert Melendez, Dennis Bermudez, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Cub Swanson, Renato Carnero, Henan Brow, I mean, he's fought a who's who of featherweights and bantamweights and lightweights. I think if he, assuming he weathers that storm early, he's going to be very live in rounds 2 and on in this fight. And at plus 135, I'm going to put $50 of my $500 bankroll on Jeremy Stephens, plus 135.
All right, not a bad bet. And I think the over's a lock too. The over's at minus 200 and a 5-round fight, only a round and a half.
But it's 1.5, yeah.
Yeah, I think no doubt it's going to go over a round and a half.
I really wanted to play the over, but I don't want to lay 200 when I'm to me, it's correlated. If you like Jeremy Stephens, you also like the over. But Jeremy Stephens is plus 135 and the over is minus 200. So I said,
no sense in playing them both.
And on the same side, if you really like Doo Ho Choi in this fight, the under at plus 170 should also have some real attraction to you, because this is a guy, when he gets wins, tends to get him early. So to me, look, if you like Jeremy Stephens, if you want to make a parlay, the over is probably the way to go with it. But because I'm dealing with the new bankroll for 2018 and it's only $500 to start, I'm only taking the dog Jeremy Stephens, 10% of my bankroll here. 50 bucks.
Not a bad bet. I like Stephens as well. I think this one goes in those 4th and 5th championship rounds, and I see Stephens pulling it out and winning those late rounds to get the decision in this fight. And the co-main event.
Are you putting any of your 50 on? I mean, any of your 500 on it?
Oh,
I'm going to beat you this year, you know.
Yes, I am, as a matter of fact.
And we'll put all the picks on the website, by the way. We'll put all the picks on the website so people could see them if you don't catch the whole pod.
And the co-main event is Vitor just coming around to collect another big fat paycheck, or is he
those
gonna?
Checks are fat nowadays.
Yeah, or is he really gonna try to win this fight? I think he's just collected a check. He's looked like garbage as of lately, although he does have that win over Nate Marquardt, but he's fighting Uriah Hall, who is just a younger, stronger, kind of more explosive version of Vitor. I don't see how Vitor wins this fight. He is a tricky southpaw, has that fast straight left. But minus 300 Uriah Hall, hey, I'm not crazy about getting him at that price.
No, and the problem with Vitor is not only has he faded, I mean, his last 4 losses are all by knockout. 3 of those 4 losses were first round knockouts. So it's not like he's fading late and getting knocked out. He's going in there and getting blasted. You know, Weidman, Gastelum, Gegard Mousasi, those guys went in there and cleaned him up.
Yep.
Jacare, first round knockout over Belfort. So he doesn't, as soon as it goes bad, he doesn't seem like he's very competitive anymore. I thought the fight against Nate Marquardt was interesting because if I recall correctly, that was on the undercard of Jose Aldo, Max Holloway 1, which was in Brazil. So you get an aging Vitor Belfort on his way out the door, ready to give one big performance in front of the hometown crowd. He stayed in there, he fought a good fight. It was close. Neither guy was great at this point in their career, but I thought he actually did win a close decision.
Yeah.
It was close. Could have gone either way. I thought him winning the decision in Brazil seemed about right for a super close fight. And he fought a good fight. Fought smart. Was trying to win the fight. Now, 40-year-old Vitor on the last fight of his deal is coming over to Missouri. And I'm not sure
Where's his
either.
motivation?
I'm not sure he has any motivation. And this isn't exactly a farewell fight. I mean, the UFC and Bellator have done a good job when these guys announce ahead of time, hey, this is my farewell fight, of giving them an opponent that's indicative of that. You know, they've done it for Uriah Faber, Brad Pickett. We're giving you this farewell fight, which you should be able to win. And go off into the sunset. That's not the case here. And on the other side
we
of it,
thought you were going out with a Marquardt and you're coming back for a payday. No, we're giving you Uriah Hall.
And he's saying he wants to fight again. But he only wants to fight guys his age, kind of his level. UFC probably doesn't want to do that. I have a feeling we might see him in Bellator or somewhere else fighting. You know, I thought they could have done Shogun Rua again. Maybe they were going to do that before. This doesn't feel like a farewell fight. I'm not sure you're going to get any effort from Vitor Belfort here, and for that reason, I would only look to Uriah Hall. But again, and look, we have a huge card next week. We're starting fresh with the 500. I don't want to blow my bankroll on a guy like Uriah Hall, who I've seen lose. I mean, Uriah Hall's lost 3 of his last 4, too.
And a lot of those, 3 of those losses were split decisions, I believe.
Well, he's 1-3 in his last 4. He got knocked out by Mousasi in the rematch. I mean, let's face it, the 3 losses in his last 4 fights are to stout guys. Mousasi, Derek Brunson, and Robert Whittaker, the defending UFC middleweight, all legit. But Hall's just one of those guys. Look, I get it. I would only be on Hall in this fight if someone told me who should I bet, it would be Hall. But I'm going to personally pass with my money.
All right. Paige Van Zandt, they're finding her a winnable fight, and she should be able to win this against Jessica Rose Clark. Right now, she's a plus 100. So pretty much this fight's a pick'em, and I kind of like her in this fight.
Yeah, I do too. And here's the only thing that scares me a little bit, and this is going to be another one of my bets. I'm going to bet 50 to win 50 on Paige Van Zandt here. Taking another 10% of my initial 500 bankroll, putting it on Paige Van Zandt. The one thing that scares me a little bit is I hate 12-month plus layoffs, especially if they aren't like injury related, where you're rehabbing dedicated to get back. Paige she's Dancing with the Stars, and she's doing some videos, and I hope she's motivated because I think Paige was on the right track. Look, she ran into a couple of buzzsaws. Tisha Torres, Rose Namajunas, and Michelle Watterson. Those are all legit losses.
Her last fight was the Watterson over a year ago.
Yeah, last December 2016. So now we're talking 13 months. If Paige Van Zandt has actually been progressing because she's still super young, 24 years old. If she's been trying to get better at her age and who she's fought, this is a fight where she should be a big favorite. But if she's just been doing movies and modeling and now she just thinks she's going to get in there, it's a little scary. I'm going to go ahead and play Paige anyway, but I'm not as confident. And I'll tell you what, I was not impressed at all with the Jessica Rose Clark win over Bec Rawlins. You know who else whipped Bec Rawlins? Paige Van Zandt, who kicked her head off and knocked her out. I actually thought Bec Rawlins beat Jessica.
Decision, yes.
And I thought she lost. I thought Bec clearly won first in 1 and 3, and then Rose Clark won 2, where she held her down all round. But I thought Bec clearly outboxed her in round 1 and then came raging on in round 3. I wasn't all that impressed with Jessica Rose Clark. And I'm not sure that she can out-wrestle Paige here. Paige is actually pretty crafty on the ground. And if she doesn't take Paige down, the superior striker here, no doubt, is Paige Van Zandt.
Yeah, and I think at a pick'em, it's a pretty good price. You can't beat that deal.
I was surprised. When I made my openers, and because of the national championship game, unfortunately, we were late to open. There were already numbers out. We made Paige 135. The market opened with Jessica Rose Clark 125. I went, ooh. Either I'm missing something or it's an overreaction to the win over Bec Rawlins.
And the loss of Watterson.
Yeah. I'm with you on Paige.
All right, Darren, the Danger Elkins, Indiana boy. Oh. Okay. I got him in a different order. Kamaru Usman, huge favorite, -600 over Emil Meek from Norway. And come on, how's Emil Meek from Norway going to compete with Usman's wrestling? He's a -600 favorite, and he should be in this fight. And for that reason, I don't really want to touch. I don't see any way Emil Meek could win this fight. Usman's hands, too. When he first won the Ultimate Fighter, he was strictly a wrestler. We saw his hands get a lot better. He had a first-round knockout of Sergio Moraes in his last fight. And I think anywhere this fight goes, it's Kamaru Usman's.
I do, too. In fact, I thought about starting my New Year's off by just putting the pile on Kamaru Usman. But there were so many fights on this card I wanted to bet. And then if you don't put it all on Usman, at -600, -700, how do you make any money back? So to me, it was either everything on Usman or pass this fight and bet the other fight, because I think this is bad. And the problem is, and we haven't really seen this in the UFC, when you were fighting and before, the UFC did a better job of, if you earned your way up the rankings, they forced guys together. You had to fight another ranked guy. Kamaru Usman's an example of, he doesn't exactly have a huge fan following yet. He's undefeated in the UFC, 6-0. He's destroying guys, and ranked guys are like, screw that, I don't want to fight this guy. That's a lose-lose for me. If I beat him, you know, I'm already ranked ahead of him, and if I lose to him, you know, I could get killed in there.
And to your point earlier, Emil Meek, last fight over a year ago. And why has he been out that long? He won a decision over Jordan Main. And yeah, that fight was over a year ago. He's been on the shelf. Why has he been on the shelf so long? And he's going on there, a guy who's 6-0 undefeated in the UFC. And a guy with a great wrestling pedigree. And, you know, you're a European guy from Norway. How do you win this fight? It's not like he's a big one-punch knockout type fighter.
He does have some bang. That's the one thing maybe, and I want nothing to do with Emil Meek. He's only one in the UFC. He has some knockouts, but against who? Guys in the European circuit? The only guy that I did see him fight outside the UFC was Rosimar Palhares.
Oh,
and he knocked him out, but that was kind of a shot. Rosimar Palhares in a regional fight. And
he has no chin.
No, he doesn't. And he has no stand-up either. And he didn't get Meek down, and Meek caught him and knocked him out. You know, I'm with you. It's Usman or nothing, and the line's so big we don't need to spend a ton of time on it.
All right, and Darren the Danger Elkins against Michael Johnson, and right now Michael Johnson's a -150 favorite. His last 2 fights, he has a loss to Khabib, and his last fight, a loss in a brutal war to Justin Gaethje. The fight was going back and forth. Both guys sustained a lot of damage. But he's been in there with the better caliber of fighters. He has wins over Dustin Poirier, Edson Barbosa, Gleison Tibau, and his wrestling is good enough to keep this fight standing. I think he has a better stand-up, and he's got a lot of experience in big fights, and at -155, I think it's a deal, and I like him in this fight.
I'm going to make a bet on this fight, and I'm going to go the opposite side as you hear. I don't like betting on guys' first fight dropping down. So Michael Johnson, career 155er, and he never struck me as overly small for 55. And he was never overly big either for 55. But I never looked at Michael Johnson fighting and going, man, that guy needs to fight at 45. So I'm nervous about it.
I was thinking Elkins is moving up for this one. Johnson's moving down.
Johnson's moving down.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I don't
So,
like that.
Yeah.
I don't like
So I
that at
really
all.
don't like. Yeah, this is Johnson's first fight at 145.
Yeah.
I don't like those guys in their first fight in this new weight class. And although Darren Elkins overall, you could say that Michael Johnson has the better resume, Darren Elkins is on a roll. He's really got it rolling right now. 5-fight win streak over big-time guys. Merced Bektik, Dennis Bermudez, Chaz Skelly. I mean, this is a guy who's really got his confidence at an all-time high. He hangs in fights. Look, he was getting mopped up by Merced Bektik. Got him in the third round when he gassed him and just crushed him. And it's one of the best. I still remember Joe Rogan talking about that fight, how emotional it is that you're just getting destroyed for 2.5 rounds, but you hang in there, and then it all becomes worthwhile when you get that late KO like he did against Merced Bektik. And then he kind of parlayed that into a big win as an underdog against Dennis Bermudez. Look, don't be surprised if you look at these guys in the weigh-in and they're all of a sudden first fight at 45, you see a drawn-in Michael Johnson and a big, healthy, strong-looking Darren Elkins. And make no mistake about it, Michael Johnson's the better striker here, but if Darren Elkins, who has a really good wrestling game, gets him down, he is going to ground and pound him for as long as he can hold him there. It's not easy to get to get Darren Elkins off you. His top game's really heavy. I'm going to go ahead again and put $50 on Darren Elkins at plus 140.
All right. Moving down the line, we got Marco Polo Reyes against Matt Steamroller Frevola. Frevola is minus 235 favorite. He's 6-0. He's got a lot of hype from the Dana White Contender Series. But this fight, too, there's just not enough to look at between the two guys. Marco Polo Reyes was on the Tough Latin Americas. He lost both those fights, actually. He lost a split decision the first round and the quarterfinals. And the semifinals, I believe, his opponent he lost to was hurt, couldn't go on. So he fought again. He ended up losing again. So this is technically, I believe, his UFC debut. And there's just not a lot to go off. So I didn't make a play on this.
Me neither. I don't know what to make a Steamroller Frevola other than he looks like, and he's young, so that's fine. His striking looks a little raw still. He doesn't look really comfortable on his feet.
Comes from Gracie Tampa.
Yeah, he
Jiu-Jitsu
doesn't
school.
have the best technique on his feet. Did he have a good ground game? He got a submission on the show, great. But before that, he literally fought 5 tomato cans. Fought once on the Dana White Contender Series. I was able to look back at another one of his fights, and you could just tell by watching him. He hasn't trained at an elite level yet for striking. So I don't know. I wanted to look
up with the guy from Argentina who probably won't have the best wrestling.
Yeah, so I just thought, I'm sure they want Steamroller Frevola to win. He has a great nickname, looks cool. He has that look to him. I'm sure UFC wants him to slowly become a star, but I just didn't know. I mean, look, Bellator wanted Aaron Pico to become a star, and 30 seconds into his debut, he was sleeping because he got knocked out with an uppercut. So, I mean, it doesn't always go as script, and I just couldn't pull the trigger.
All right, next up, we got James Krause. He's been around the scene for a long time, fighting Alex White. Right now, Krause is a minus 160 favorite, and I think that's a deal. He's 6 foot tall. He's huge for this division. He has been fighting at 170. He was on the Ultimate Fighter Redemption show, fighting at 170. He made it to the semifinals where he got caught in a guillotine by Jesse Taylor. But he's going to be huge, and Alex White has been fighting down at 45 most of his career. Now he's moving up to 55. Krause from 170 back down to 55, and I think Krause is just going to be too big, too strong, too much to handle for Alex White, and I'm going to play him at minus 160.
I am as well, and I'm going to bet $150 on Krause. It's going to be my biggest, in terms of dollars risk wager of the fight. And every time I think of this fight in my mind, I get this vision of Chidi and Jukwani fighting Melvin Guillard in Bellator, and those two standing at the weigh-in, and Guillard standing up and laughing as he looks way up at Chidi. And like you went, oh my God, how is, even at the weigh-in you went, these guys are like 4 weight classes apart. I think we might feel that way here because James Krause is a tall fighter at 6'2" for 100. He was tall for 170. He has made 55 before, which I like. This isn't the first trek ever to 55. He's been down there before. Went up to 70 for the Tough Redemption show. Reminds me a lot of James Vick, another guy from Texas who I really like. Same body type. Vick's a little bit more power in his hands than Krause, but they have very similar styles. Look, Krause has been in there with some real deal guys. You know, choked out Darren Cruikshank's been in there with Jorge Masvidal.
Got some win over Jamie Varmer, Sam Stout.
Yeah. Shane Campbell, Tom Colicchio in his last. He's on a 3-fight win streak in the UFC. I feel like Krause suddenly has some momentum. Coming off the show, he's got a win streak going. He's still only 31 years old. Plenty of time to make that run. He's going to be the bigger, stronger. He's the more established guy here. And when I look at James White, look, he's 3-3 in the UFC, and you go, okay, well, who did he lose to? Lucas Martins knocked him out. Clay Collard, Tony Martin. These are guys that everyone else beats that whipped him. I don't even know half the guys that he beat. Estevan Payan, and I mean, he does have a win over Mitch Clark in his last. That's by far the most impressive win here for White. But now moving up in weight, he's going to have huge size difference, huge reach disadvantage here against a really experienced guy. And you might think, well, maybe White could get him down, but Krause is the submission guy here. He's really the tactical submission guy. Double-digit submissions wins for James Krause. This is my biggest bet on the card, taking James Krause.
All right, you've heard it from Matt and from me. We both like Krause in this fight. All right, next up, a similar kind of matchup in Vitor versus Uriah Hall. We got Thiago Alves just collecting a big paycheck coming in there against Zach Cummings. Zach Cummings a -200 favorite, and to me, he's kind of worth it. This isn't the same Thiago Alves that challenged for the title that used to knock guys out. Like this guy, he's past his prime, and he's fighting Zach Cummings. If the smaller Jim Miller was able to take down Thiago Alves and out-wrestle him 2 fights ago, I think the 170-pound welterweight Zach Cummings could easily do the same.
And you know, everyone thinks of Thiago Pitbull Alves as this big puncher. He hasn't had a knockout win since 2008. I mean, it's just only one knockout win since 2008. This guy's just knocking people out anymore. That's a decade with 1 KO win for Pitbull Alves. And look, we all remember the 7-fight win streak, the fight with GSP. That was all amazing. None of us knew how he made 170 back in the day, but there's no IVs anymore. And the Pitbull then, that was just you couldn't fit one more muscle into a 170-pound frame. And he used to come in and fight around 200. He'd hit the 170. He'd come in and fight like 200.
Yep.
That guy doesn't exist anymore. And since that GSP fight, 5-6 in the UFC, a losing record. A guy who once fought George St. Pierre for the title has had a losing record in the UFC since. I don't want to lay 210 with Zach Cummings. I was hoping that Thiago Alves' name would carry a lot more weight with the odds, but it didn't. He fights too infrequently now. A lot of people don't even remember the St. Pierre fight a decade ago anymore.
And look at to Zach Cummings' credit, who he's lost to. Santiago Ponzinibbio and Gunnar Nelson, two of the top guys in the division. So other than that, he's been perfect in the UFC. 21-5 overall, and at -200, I don't think that's asking too much.
No, 4-1 in his last 5, but the wins, I feel like they keep feeding him these prospects, thinking Zach Cummings isn't that good, and he just keeps knocking them all down. The one that he buzzsaw he ran into is Santiago Ponzinibbio in his last 5, but I just don't want to lay 210, so I passed.
All right. Next up, I'm passing on
Evil Eye.
The Talita Bernardo, Irene Aldana.
Are we passing Evil Eye too?
Oh yeah, Jessica Evil Eye. How did she stay in the UFC? She's 1-5-1 in the UFC with her only loss coming on a doctor's stoppage.
Only win.
Only win coming on doctor's stoppage over Leslie Smith because her ear was falling off. And Leslie wanted to continue fighting, but other than that, she hasn't won a fight in the UFC. And she's fighting Kalindra Farina. How do you say her last name? Faria, and right now it's pretty much a pick'em. What do you like in this fight?
I like Faria. I just don't know that I want to bet her. I mean, I have money left. I still have 200 left to bet out of my bankroll, but I don't know that I want to put it on Faria. Faria, the Brazilian here, she's probably the more accomplished fighter. I mean, let's face it, Evil Eye is lost to all names you've heard of. Sarah McMahon, Beth Correa, Misha Tate, Juliana Lima, people that you've heard of. So you've heard of all the fighters she's lost to, but like Beth Correa is not very good. No. She doesn't win very often. No. So losing to her, I mean, basically, Beth Correa beat her and then got a fight with Holly Holm. I mean,
parlayed it.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot bet on Evil Eye. The one thing I will say about Faria, whose record's not that great, 18-6, 3 of her losses outside the UFC, Claudia Gadelha, Jessica Aguiar, and Carolina Coelho. Yeah. I mean, those are 3 girls that all fought for the title in the UFC.
That's a good
all
point.
Beat Faria outside the UFC.
So if you could get Faria as a pick'em, that's not
all right, I'm in. I'm going to put 50 on Faria because there's nothing worse than the Evil Eye.
All right. And how do you stay in the UFC
I have no
when
idea.
you only won 1 out of 7 fights?
I have no idea. And that shows
crazy.
you the problem when they started these 2 new women's divisions with 125 and 145. You know, when they just had 2 divisions, they had really good depth. Suddenly, those talent pools are so shallow that you have people like Jessica Evil Eye, who basically might as well be 0-6 in the UFC, still in the UFC because they just need bodies.
All right. Next up, JJ Eldridge versus Danielle Taylor. And this fight's pretty much a pick'em. Eldridge minus 130, but I think Eldridge's style plays into Danielle Taylor's hands. I was checking her out. She's trained by Sakes and Genera there in California, and she has a good kind of counterpunch and quick feet style. And Eldridge just moves forward. She's kind of slow, plodding, and just keeps moving forward. And I think Danielle Taylor will outstrike her, and her counterpunch will be the difference in this fight.
Another bet on this fight for me, $50 on Danielle Taylor. That's 400 of my 500 at plus 110. And I love Danielle Taylor in this fight. I remember watching her UFC debut against Marina Moroz, who at the time was ranked and trying to get that title shot.
And had a bunch of reach on her.
Yes, and she gave Moroz all she could handle. And the only reason I feel like she didn't get that split decision win over Moroz was she's a little bit hesitant. She's such a good
backward too much,
and she's such a good counter puncher. At times, they would stand there because she would only want to counter. But I think she learned her lesson in losing that split decision because since then we have seen a little bit more aggression out of her, and she's won 2 straight fights in the UFC since then. Super athletic. I mean, just turbo ripped, chiseled, great feet, great footwork, great ring generalship. And on the other side, Aldrich is just a come forward, throw lots of punches, high volume striker, and that is going to play right into the hands of the counter puncher here. Not only do I think Danielle Taylor is going to win this fight, I think there's a chance she might stop her, as Aldrich might walk into a big combination.
Yeah, she could crack. Yeah. Danielle Taylor in the Marina Moroz fight had her hurt with that right hand. She just didn't follow up too much, so she has some pop on those punches.
And I feel like her last fight was a knockout win. Jessica Penne or the undefeated Asian she fought, Sihu Ham. One of them, I feel like she knocked one of them out too since the Mariana Moroz fight. So I really like Danielle Taylor here, and I'm certainly betting it that one. 50 more. My dollars, 10% of my initial 2018 bankroll going on Danielle Taylor.
All right. Just 2 more fights on the card. Mons Burrell versus Mike Santiago. And right now, Santiago minus 175 favorite. And I didn't play this one. Santiago off the Dana White Contender Series. He's won like 9 of his last 10. And he's one of those guys that got into the game probably a little too early. Most of his losses were in his first 10 fights.
Yeah.
But since his win in the Dana White Contender Series, he's 0-1 in the UFC. He is a favorite in this fight. He's fighting a guy, Mods Burnell, who's 0-1 in the UFC. But he lost to Michael Prazeres. That guy's a beast. No shame in that. Prazeres kept taking him down and eventually choked him out in the 3rd round. But there wasn't enough to watch on Mads Burnell to really make a decision in this fight. I mean, you saw a guy with really good wrestling and ground take him down over and over. I couldn't really gauge how well his stand-up is.
He has no stand-up. He has 0 knockouts in his career, and he has no stand-up. I went back and watched a few fights. Mads Burnell has literally 0 stand-up. But the problem is, and this has become one of the issues with jiu-jitsu, and we see it less as these guys become more and more complete mixed martial artists, and you know it, those guys that used to come in, they were only jiu-jitsu guys. How do you get the takedown? They didn't have the wrestling chops to actually take a wrestler down or something. So now you're counting on getting in a scramble or trying to get someone in the clinch, and that could be difficult the way how well-rounded these guys are now. Santiago, I did see that he had won 9 in a row coming into the UFC, got rear naked choked in his debut. I just don't want to the level of competition for both has been so low, and they've both kind of failed in the UFC. I think Santiago is going to be the more active striker here. He's going to be the guy pushing the pace. But I wonder what happens if he gets taken. If he does get taken down by Burnell, is he going to get choked out? I just ended up passing on this one.
Same here. Last fight, Guido Canetti versus Kyung Ho Kang. Kang, a huge favorite, -345, the second biggest favorite on the card. He's 2-2 in the UFC. Well, 2-1. He should be 2-2, but he's lost to Alex Caceres. Got turned into a no contest due to Caceres having marijuana metabolites in his system, which to me is kind of bullshit.
It certainly didn't help Caceres win his fight.
Yeah. And he's fighting Guido Canetti. He's won the UFC. Same thing here. I just didn't get enough tape on Guido Canetti to really pull my trigger.
I watched Kang a little bit and said, boy, if Kang is -275 against anyone, I'm going to try to find a reason to bet the dog. So I went back to you and I's theory on, okay, if we're going to bet a big dog here, how does the dog win the fight? And I started looking at Guido Canetti and I went, boy, I just don't know how he wins this fight. It doesn't seem like he has any clear path to victory. I ended up passing it too.
All right, well, there you have it. $500 bankroll. There's some good bets to make on this card, and wish you guys the best of luck. For Matthew Holt, I'm Stephan Bonnar, signing out on the final round.